Hello, this is Mr. Larson. Here we go. We are recording. I'm re-recording my audio on top. So today's lesson is 1-1, and I like to give it a familiar name, kind of an easier name than what the book gives, and so I call it pieces and parts. Okay? First piece and part that we talk about is points. Little dots. They have 0 dimensions, which means we cannot measure them in any shape or fashion. Now, a point, unfortunately, can't be drawn, so we instead draw it with a dot. And we then give it a name, cleverly, like a capital letter. Capital, children. And there are certain letters you probably want to avoid. O, I, obvious things like that. That for me, Z is a little bit tricky. It looks like a 2. But anyways. Lines, second thing. These things have 1 dimension. Hooray! But bad news is they're infinite. They go on and on. So we can't measure the line. Now when we represent that line, we like to put arrows at the end of the line to show that it goes on forever and ever. Yes? When we label or name a line, there's 2 different ways that we can name it. We can use a lowercase letter, or we could use 2 uppercase letters that each represent 2 points that are on the line. Yeah. So, example, in our orange line there, we could call this line L. So typically, for the L, I use cursive because it looks like otherwise it looks like a 1. Or again, you could pick 2 points like A and B and put a little line on top of that with arrows on both sides so that you can see that this is a line which goes on forever and ever. And again, it doesn't matter what 2 points you pick. So, next, there are what we would call a part of a line, and that we would call is a line segment. It has a dimension, and it's finite now in length, which means it has a specific distance. And that distance we can measure by finding the distance between the 2 points that obviously we have labeled with capital letters. Okay? So I could, in the above line, write A, C. Yeah? And then I put a little segment symbol on top, not the arrows. And again, the distance from A to C is 2. So notice there is no line on top of the A and the C. It just is a segment. Okay? Be very conscious of what you put on top of those capital letters, whether you're talking about a distance, a segment, or a line. There is now a third option. Oh, and I guess I do another example here with FC. Notice F is to the right, C is to the left, doesn't matter. The distance is still positive 3. All right. Array. In this case, 2 is 1-dimensional, much like a line. They are all straight, by the way. We don't ever need to say a straight line, because by definition they have to be. And they're infinite. But what is different about this infinite is that it is only infinite in one direction. So it has an endpoint, right? And we draw it with an arrow above the 2 letters. So when I give it a name, right, these creative names that we give lines and rays and segments, capital letters, we put an arrow above it. So if I look at the line segment above us, A to C, right, starting at A going towards C. Now if you look at C to A, that's another ray, but that ray is not the same as AC. And likewise, DC, and then if I look at ray DB, those 2 are the same, right? Even though I have different letters, they start at the same spots. So pay attention, and notice that when I wrote them out, all the arrows go to the right. Okay? Apologies to the left-handed people out there. Angle. Angles now are composed of putting 2 rays together, and these 2 rays intersect, specifically at the endpoints. Yeah, so kind of where they start That's the shared point. And they just go in different directions. We typically, when we want to name an angle, we label it with 3 capital letters, and that middle letter is known as the vertex. Sometimes we're lazy and we use a number, and I'll show you how to do that here in just a moment. But it's a much faster way, and just call it angle 6, for example, or something like that, instead of saying angle ADF, right? All right, what is a vertex though? A vertex is a point where any 2 line segments or rays intersect, right? It's where they meet up. And think of it kind of like a corner. So let me do a little drawing here of this. So there's a ray, and okay, come back. There we go. And there we get the line. And notice they share a point, and that point there is the vertex of like 3 different angles, right? And I didn't give it a name, but I did kind of highlight it to show what a vertex can be. So think of it like a corner. Now, occasionally I make a mistake on videos, and this one I did make a mistake, and see if you can tell what mistake I made in the following statement. Angle ADC is equal to, and I just labeled where A, B, and C are. They should have had little dots there. But angle ADC is the same as angle 1. Now, I didn't recognize that when I made the video, but you can clearly see angle ADC and angle 1 are not the same thing. It should have said angle ADB. Yes? That's smaller one. So cross that C off, put a B there. Now, after that, angle ADC, the big right triangle, is the same as angle 1 plus angle 2, right? If we add up those 2 angles. All right, finally, a triangle. We get a triangle by putting 3 segments together that create 3 vertices. So take 3 segments and put them with 3 vertices, and bam, you've got yourself a triangle, like triangle ABC. Don't worry, we'll talk about that one a lot more, but that's just how we define a triangle made out of segments, parts, and pieces. Finally, 2 big words. First word you probably know, union, means to put together, right? The symbol is a U. And I go through a couple of problems here using that. For example, if I take a ray DA up there and look at ray DC, right? Those 2 rays, according to the diagram, if I unite them together, I get a triangle, the triangle ADC, right? And likewise, in an intersection, right, this is asking what do we have in common. The symbol is that upside down thing, and there, if I say DA intersect DC, that means what do they have in common? Oh, they both have in common a D, the letter D, the point, right? Where they both intersect. That vertex dot is the common thing. All right, so that was our lesson. Best of luck as you go through and work on these pieces and parts. In page 7, 5 to 14, I think was the assignment. Hopefully you can get those done